Rochelle.
Hello, my beautiful friend. How are you?
Hi, Rochelle.
I
How are
haven't seen you
you?
forever.
I know it has been a long time, hasn't it?
It has been. How are you?
Good, good, good.
How-
We are managing in
Managing.
these
Yeah,
weird and chaotic times. How are
absolutely.
you?
Same thing. We're managing in these times, doing the best we can. We haven't killed each other yet, so I think we're on a good place, you know.
I think, that is a good place to be.
Absolutely. How are the kids?
They're good. Disappointed, of course, because the school year got cut short.
Yeah.
Um, and it's obviously stressful to them watching the headlines.
Mhm.
But we've been, the other good thing about being together is we have lots of opportunities to talk about it, to read articles and discuss what's going on, talk about, family history, all sorts of things that I think help them put it in perspective and also um, give them an opportunity to release some of the stress just by being able to talk to each other about it. So
Absolutely. So
that part is good.
Great. That's great to hear. I'm glad. And I can't wait till we can see each other in person again. Because every time
Yes.
I see you, you get more beautiful than you were the last time.
Oh,
So
you're
thank you.
so sweet, and you are unchanging and young and beautiful as always.
Oh
It's
my
hard to
goodness.
believe I met you so long ago.
I know it. My children have been teasing me about my hair because I just wash it and braid it every night. And so my daughter says to me, "You think you're going to be famous like that?" I said, "I'm not aiming to be famous. That's not what I want." So
Well, but the other thing is, why can't I be famous like that? I mean, this is my version of step out the shower, comb through, and whatever happens, happens,
yeah,
and every day is different.
yeah,
So,
I have days like that too. So let's start our chat. So will you
okay.
please start by telling us your name, telling us a little bit about yourself, anything you wish to share, work, love, life, parenting, anything you wish to share. The floor is yours, please.
Okay. So, Aubria Corbitt is my name. I am a lawyer by training and have had the opportunity throughout my career. I guess I graduated about 30 years ago to work in private corporate practice,
Mhm.
to be in-house counsel at a big Fortune 500 financial services company,
Mhm.
um, then to transition into more of a business development role at the same company, where I supported affordable housing, a number of community development initiatives, and then worked in a corporate foundation where I had the great privilege of walking around the country and giving financial support, um, technical advice, and some training to nonprofits that were on the ground in neighborhoods all over the place doing good things. So that was fantastic.
Excellent.
For the past few years, almost a decade now, I guess, not quite, I have been primarily focused on my role as parent and also providing a lot of support to, in an elder care way to my mother.
Mhm.
I now have an empty nest and am looking forward to the next chapter.
Well, I have a chapter for you, but we'll have to talk about that offline. But I do have a chapter for you.
Okay, I can't wait to hear it because you are a font of insight and good ideas. And unfortunately, I haven't always taken you up on it or been in a position to, but um, crazy things, pandemic and others notwithstanding, it's an open book now. And so let's talk about it.
Absolutely. So you're a parent. You have, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 children, two that just finished their first year in college, hoping they can get back, in the fall to go on to their sophomore year, and an older daughter who just graduated Syracuse. So I've got 3 children. They're all here with me now.
Okay. Let me ask you an uncomfortable question. Have you had to have the talk with them? about how to carry themselves in a society where they're not always seen and heard?
Um, Absolutely, you could ask. And quite frankly, I made the deliberate decision many, many years ago. As I said, they're all college age now, that I was not going to be uncomfortable with the talk, that the talk is the talk, it's necessary.
Mhm.
And I've always tried to be as upfront as I could be with my children about what they might face. You know, you're a parent too. And so we understand that our job as parents, we try to shepherd these children, um, provide them support and guidance.
Right.
And I always was very clear about that, that my job at the end of the day is to work toward an end that means that they're fine without me, you know, that they can stand on their own 2 feet, make good decisions, and so forth.
Right.
So, with respect specifically to the talk, we have been having versions of the talk. I mean, I don't even know when that started, from the very beginning. As you know, I lived in New York for a long time. I moved away in '09, which means that the twins were 8 when I moved away.
Mhm.
So prior to that time, I remember doing this when we were in New York. Prior to that time, you know, we made sure, my ex-husband and I made sure that our children understood their history, their
Mhm.
personal history. Yeah, we were both from the South. And we let them know what their individual roots were, as well as explaining to them some of the family stories, family legacies, but also by exposing them to roots, for example.
Mhm.
My children, I mean, before the age of 8, we had watched the original 19, what was that, 77, I guess.
778, somewhere around there.
Yeah, in that range. We, you know, we made sure that they watched that, and we watched it with them, and we talked about it. We talked about what those images were, what they meant. Again, you know, it was 1970s television, so, you know, there weren't that many things that were in it that we thought they couldn't see.
Mhm.
And we kind of pushed the envelope on it, I'm sure, to say, look, you know, this isn't pretty, but this is representative of what happened. We made sure that we had Black art in the home. We had books by Black authors. We talked a lot about that. We've always done that to try to give them a sense of grounding.
Mhm.
One of my most vivid recollections of, like, when the talk got real serious and individual was after we moved here. When we moved here, um, the twins were in 5th grade, and I'm focused on them because the only male child I have, my son, is one of the twins. And the talk is a little bit different for him than it is, you know, generally for all Black people. There's, you know, the general talk, and then there's the Black man talk.
Right.
And when we moved here, he was in 5th grade. And I was very happy to see he was making friends really easily. And we lived right down the street from the school. So it functioned very much as a neighborhood school. You know, a lot of kids who could walk to school, you know, and go door to door to play. And within the first few days, kids were knocking on the door
Mhm.
to come see him and, you know, go out in the backyard and play, or, you know, to walk back with him to their homes or whatever it might be. And again, I was really happy to see that, welcome these kids in our home. We
Right.
lived in a mostly white neighborhood,
Mhm.
and, you know, it didn't take long, a few weeks, before my son started wanting to do the same thing. I want to go over to so and so's house. Can I walk around? You know, sometimes it was just 3 or 4 doors away, the next street over. I
Mhm.
want to go to their house. Can I go? I finished my homework. No, you may not. You may not go. If you're going to go to their house, that's great, but we need to call, and I need to drive you there. Mom, it's ridiculous, especially coming from New York where we walked everywhere. He's like, Mom, it's like not even a block away. I know it's not a block away. I still need to drive you.
Right.
And I remember explaining to him, within this neighborhood, yeah, it's a largely white neighborhood. It wasn't so super exclusive or anything, but there just weren't a lot of Black people around. I said, there are a lot of people here who are older, as well as some of your classmates' parents. You just got here. These people don't know you.
Mhm.
Walking down the street could end up with them calling the police, even though you're a little kid. I mean, we got here in what, 2000, he was 10 years old. And I
Yeah.
said, you're a little kid, but no, you can't do it.
Yeah.
He thought I was crazy. He also wanted to wear basketball shorts. We are in North Carolina, so he was beginning to get into basketball. He wanted to wear basketball shorts and like sports jerseys to school. And I said, no, you can't wear that to school. You have to wear khaki shorts and a collar shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I can relax on the belt, but you do have to wear a collared shirt, like a polo shirt or something.
Right. Yeah.
Well, again, I was the wackiest mom on the planet. And I explained to him the same thing. I said, Alex, they don't know you. Right. And I said to him, I don't want you to get that treatment, where they'll write you off. You're a smart kid. I don't want them writing you off. I don't want them shuttling you off to special ed or whatever it might be. They don't know me. They don't understand our expectations as a family, at least until they understand who you are. They've seen you perform. I've had a chance to go to some parent-teacher conferences, volunteer at school. No, you can't do that. He thought I was crazy, and it broke my heart. And at the same time, I thought, this is necessary. This is life. All of that came to an end, the sort of mom, you're so whatever. One morning, we were having breakfast, and the television was on at the breakfast, as we were eating breakfast. Mm-hmm. And it was the story of Trayvon Martin.
Amen.
And I was sort of listening, but I was making breakfast for them and, trying to keep things moving. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, he looked at me and he said, so this is what you were talking about? Yeah. And I said, yes, that's what I was talking about. Yeah. And again, it sort of breaks your heart, but I could see it in his eyes. He got it. He understood. Yeah. This is what you were concerned about.
Right.
And we hadn't had an argument over what he should wear or how he should conduct himself or any of that since then. I actually think that was, the beginning of his sort of paying attention to politics and becoming interested in what it means to be a Black man in this country. He was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And he understood.
Yeah. I could tell you a similar story with my son. So so my son played basketball. He played AAU basketball. He played basketball in high school and middle school. And he would have those same conversations. Mom, can I go over to my friend's house? And we're not talking about next door, but maybe in Chapel Hill or
right.
maybe in another part of Durham. And while he knew the players and they knew him well and they were always there, many of them came here. I was never comfortable with him going there unless I went there, I met the parent, I was able to feel some sense of whether my child would be safe. Because in addition to how Black men are visualized, in regards to how old they are, there were at the time, people who were molesting children, people who were doing
absolutely
terrible. So I wanted to know where my child was going and what was his experience going to be. So if I couldn't go and I couldn't go in the house and meet the parents, then he could not go. Now, we've never had a conversation about dress. My son has played, as I said, he's played basketball since he was 3 years old. So he always wears basketball attire. He does not wear jerseys, but, he wears basketball shorts and,
sure,
things of that nature. So we've never had a discussion about clothes, but we've always had a discussion about what it is. And so, my son was very, very sick for a very long time. He missed 3 semesters of his college career, which means he won't graduate until late summer of next year. I need to borrow about $4 million if you could send it my way. But anyway, 48 miles from our front door to his front door at school. And the minute he pulled out our driveway to the minute he got to school, I prayed until he said, Mom, I'm home. I made it. Or when he said, Mom, yes, you're ready to come home, I started praying until he pulled into the driveway.
Yeah.
So, and what's unfortunate about that is that we never know what the trigger is that is going to make a police officer or some other person see our children as dangerous or invisible or something
right.
like that, and so you're always hoping and praying. And I've gotten so now what I do every morning, I get up and I pray. I'm on my way to brushing my teeth or whatever I'm doing, I start praying, and I ask God. I don't pray for things. I just ask God to have mercy on us, for us that are living and for us that are dead, no matter what color, race, or what you've done. ask God to have mercy. And sometimes I get to read a Bible scripture. I try to read a Bible scripture every morning, but it's not always the case that I am able to, but I try. Because I am afraid. And I'm not only afraid for Black and brown people, I'm afraid for white people who stand with us. Because if you remember Selma and,
Yeah,
all the things that Martin Luther King had done, he had lots of white people that were joining them, priests and preachers and people who were marching with them, and they were beaten and things. So, whenever someone sides with us as Black people, they become as vulnerable as we are.
absolutely. That's right. They become targets.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then when you flip it to the other side of this, and I say this all the time, and a lot of people get upset with me when I say this. If it were not for white people, we would still be enslaved. We would still be slaves because we did not have a mechanism or a voice to say, hey, look what's happening to us. So, I don't find any fault with any group of people. I find faults with individuals and philosophies that people tout as being the holy grail. Like, what is white supremacy? Tell me what that is. Tell me what a neo-Nazi is. And of course I know what the dictionary is or
Right.
what the common, but what does that mean to me as a Black woman? So am I working? And there's a man sitting next to me in my office. The Klan has gone from hoods to suits. It's the guy sitting next to me that, or something. So, it is an interesting time. So let me ask you another question. So as a Black woman, tell me about your career. Tell me, have you ever felt like you did not advance as far and as well as you had because you were a Black woman? Have you ever felt harassed or discriminated against as a Black woman? Have you ever been labeled or stereotyped as a Black woman?
So, yeah, that's interesting. I can say that I've had very sort of clear experiences where I felt like I was in an environment where I was viewed as an individual,
Mhm.
and where the company culture really stressed, we don't play those games. I'm
Mhm.
not saying everything was perfect, and there isn't somebody I was working with who couldn't raise their hand and say, "Oh, wait a minute, the people I worked with were horrible."
Mhm.
But I did have the benefit of working in some environments where treating people without bias, not assuming things about people, whether they were gay or Jewish or Black, whatever it was like, okay, we don't do that. We don't like that here. That's not who we are.
Mhm.
And the impression was, the company sort of put its money where the mouth was, and there were people who were promoted and opportunity was there. And I'm grateful for that. There have been other work experiences, as you could probably tell. I've been in a number of different environments in different parts of the country and different kinds of organizations. There were certainly times where, who knows, I wasn't in a culture that was very sort of anti-racist, anti-bias, anti all of that, like that one company was. But I didn't feel anything super overt either. So who knows if there were people who had issues with me, if I was passed over, it wasn't clear to me, or nor did I even get the feeling that it might have been based on the fact that I was a woman or I was Black. But then there were some experiences that I had, the kind of stuff that I'm, in reflection, I thought, I couldn't make this up if somebody paid me, but it really happened.
Happened.
And actually, I saw this represented the other day. I was sitting with the kids and we were watching an older episode of Blackish, and it happened to the main character, Rainbow. I don't know if you've watched that show, but it happened to the main character there, where she met this. Well, I'll tell you what happened to me, but seeing it in that show gave me an opportunity to talk about it with the children. I had sort of forgotten about it. When I was a young lawyer in a private law firm in Atlanta, I was invited to a Christmas party, I think it was, for our department, the corporate law department. And there were maybe 30 lawyers there. I think there were the 2 or 3 paralegals in our department were there. And then there was one, that was back when we had secretaries, like traditional secretaries. The one secretary, whose boss, I think he must have been the head of the department or something, he was hosting the party. So she was there sort of organizing the caterers and so forth. So this is lawyers, some of the spouses of lawyers, like I said, 2 or 3 paralegals, and the one secretary who worked for the guy hosting the party. So I was standing with one of my classmates from UVA. I went to law school at UVA. Standing with one of my classmates from UVA. And we were sort of chatting. We graduated together. We knew each other at UVA, and we came to the same law firm. And another associate in the department who was maybe 3 years ahead of us. We had just gotten there, and she'd been there for maybe 3-4 years. A spouse walked over, a spouse of one of the lawyers in the department. The associate who was 3 or 4 years ahead of us introduced my classmate. This is Josie. That's not a real name, obviously. She's new with us, whatever. Right. And the spouse said, "Oh, nice to meet you, Josie." And then the associate said, and this is Aubria, she's also new with us. And I said, "Oh, she said, oh, nice to meet you." I said, "Nice to meet you." And she looked at me and said, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, well, I've been generally working on banking matters." She said, "Okay, but what do you do?" And I didn't know what she was talking about. So I said, "Oh, well, actually, I've been working on some SEC registrations. I had the opportunity to work with your husband, actually, and learned a lot." I mean, I didn't know what I was like, and it was a great experience, blah, blah, blah. And she said, "But what do you do? Are you a secretary, paralegal, or what?" I don't know if I mentioned this. I think I was the only Black person who was there. And I remember just sort of chuckling to myself and saying, "Oh, I'm a first year also." And the associate stepped in then and said, "Yeah, they're both new associates in the department. They just started with us." And the woman, sort of looked at the associate, and then she turned back to me and she said, "Oh, well, isn't that wonderful? Your parents must be so proud. This is a really good law firm. You're lucky to be here." Now, mind you, she just met my classmate, who's the only difference between us, from her perspective at least, is that she's white, I'm Black. She didn't ask her what she did. She assumed she was a lawyer. And she didn't get the whole, your parents must be very proud. This is a really good law firm, and, you're really lucky to be here treatment. And I remember just standing there and thinking, did that really actually just happen? Yeah. And of course it did. And I stayed a few more minutes and I left. And I just thought, I've done what I could. I kept my nose clean. I went to college. I went to law school. I worked really hard. I spent all this money that I'm going to have to pay back. And here I am within the first few months of my new career. And, this is what I'm going to have to deal with on top of everything else. Just, learning what I'm supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis, trying to be a good lawyer. On top of that, I'm going to have to take on this kind of burden to prove to everybody that I actually deserve to be here, and, being mistaken for, someone who, with a lot less education and whatever, it was just bizarre. And there were lots of things at that particular law firm that happened. I mean, I walked around that place feeling very much like the green two-headed alien, just like, is it really that big a deal? Am I really that different that you people have to? It was bizarre. So yes, I have clearly been in situations where I got that treatment. Luckily, like I said, that was the first. I was able to move on from there, thanks be to God. And I haven't run into anything that overt, that horrible since. And also, as I matured as a professional, I acquired some tools to deal with that kind of treatment. So I wouldn't have been as sort of caught off guard as I was then. I mean, I was, what, 24, 25 years old. I mean, it was really shocking.
Yeah. Would you be interested in talking about how we met and your experiences where we worked?
Sure. Do you want to start? You want to set it up, or is it, I guess I don't, I'm happy to talk about any of that. I guess I'm thinking I want to talk about what you have in mind. So,
What I'm just trying to get, what I hope from all these conversations are, they serve as tools to white, brown, and Black people. One, to tell your story, but two, to highlight the injustices and inequities that inequalities that we experience working while Black, driving while Black, living while Black, eating while
breathing,
Black,
right?
whatever you can find while Black, right?
Yeah.
So when I asked you about where we met, I remember your first day, and I came into your office and I was setting up your computer and doing all these things. And you were such a lovely woman, such a wonderful, kind, generous personality. It was just instant kismet. For me, I fell in love almost the very same day, you know, so I was just very, very happy to have known you. And then, you know, maybe a month, 2, 3 months, I don't know exactly, you were gone. And it was like, not like anyone told me or said, you know, she's not here anymore. So when I would come down, you know, for my weekly Aubria chat, you know,
Right.
there was no Aubria. And I didn't know why. And I still don't know why you weren't there. And, you know, what were your experiences with that time?
Yeah, that.
And you don't have to name the name of the
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, that is one of those maddening experiences, I think, that we Black people, and sometimes we women, and sometimes we Black women,
Mm-hmm.
And not that it's exclusive. I'm sure there are other folks who, you know, other discrete insular minorities who go through the same thing, where something truly bizarre happens. And this falls into that category that I mentioned earlier, where I was lucky enough to work in a place where there are very sort of vocal, you know, anti-bias, you know. And then there was that law firm that I told you about that was crazy. I mean, I still can't believe that happened, and yet it did, and many other things. And then there were those times where you're sort of in between, and it's like, well, something weird was going on, but I can't say for a fact I know what the weird was.
Right.
And it falls into one of those kinds of situations where I don't know what that was about, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's maddening because when things get weird like that, when you're passed over, when, you know, you're let go, when, you know, it's clear that you should come to an agreement to move on, which is, I think, how we left it. Like, okay, this isn't working out. Let's agree to shake hands and say goodbye. You know, you're left wondering, like, okay, how much was it that it just ended up being a bad fit? Just a bad fit.
Yep.
How much of it was that people made decisions about who I was and what they needed, and upon further reflection decided, well, actually, we need something different. So it wasn't necessarily a bad fit, but it's not what we need.
Right.
How much of it is some embedded bias? You know, one of the things that has been clear to me throughout, you know, my career is how much as Black people we have to guard against other people's ideas about who we are.
Exactly.
We walk in, and quite often the assumption is that we don't deserve to be there, that we're not going to work out, that we somehow, you know, stole the position from somebody who was actually worthy. Yeah. And so
let me add one more to that. We're emotionally unstable, or an angry Black or violent Black person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And along with that we probably have, you know, a litany of horrors waiting for us at home. You name it, you know, right, that it's right. Everything that they saw on some cheap ABC, you know, movie of the week.
Right.
And so, you know, we walk in and there's an assumption against us. We don't get the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
We get the opposite of that. It's all you walk in and people quite often sort of expect you to fail,
Right,
expect you to be the person who doesn't work out, who doesn't measure up.
right,
And of course, you and I both know that if that's the lens through which things are viewed, it's really easy to come up short.
yep, absolutely,
Anybody who is scrutinized under a microscope is going to be found lacking.
right,
Likewise, you know, lots of people who start with the benefit of the doubt, a presumption of competence, um, you know, they're allowed to be imperfect. They're allowed to sort of have the normal sort of learning curve entering into a new position. They don't have to be perfect.
right.
And so,
And they're given chance after chance after chance. Where
absolutely.
when you make your mistake, you're automatically marked and then maybe designated as, okay, we can let her go or we can let him go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how many times do you see that? You know, I've now, you know, again, over the course of my career, I've been in sessions, you know, where employees had to be evaluated. And
Yeah,
there's somebody that, you know, is a super nice person and everybody likes them. And they've been given chance after chance, and many people sort of taken them under their wing, tried to mentor them. They're not working out, but they continue to get chance after chance. There's not anything necessarily wrong with that. As a matter of fact, there are many cases I think that's fine. They are someone that, you know, needs a little bit more time, has more to learn,
right.
could use some more training. The
Yeah,
problem is not that they get the pass and the benefit of the doubt. The problem, like you said, is the reverse of it, where there's somebody who's super sharp, has a lot to offer, has made one little mistake, and like you said, people are really, really quick to just write them off.
right.
Let's get rid of them.
Yeah,
And quite often, when you look at, well, what's the difference between these two people? There's something else that comes up.
right.
It's not the merits at all of what the mistake was or what the consequences were, or did they take responsibility for it? Are they taking actions to improve? It comes down to things like, you know, it's a woman, or it's a black person, or, you know,
Yeah,
they're Muslim, or whatever it might be, but it's not anything on the merits, which to me suggests, again, you started out viewing them as a person who probably wasn't going to make it.
right.
And then you're looking for evidence to support what you already believe. Whereas
Ab-
the other person, you started out believing, good guy or girl or whatever, you know, they're probably going to do well here. They look like they fit in. And then you bend over backwards trying to make that
Right,
happen. So go back to my experience there. It's one of those things. It was extremely disruptive for me on a personal level for a number of reasons. I think I told you this. I had my concerns about the position and had even taken the steps to tell the hiring manager, I'm not sure that this is going to work out. You
yeah,
know, you know, as I look at this and I know we're pretty far down the road, but now that I have the details on what you need, I'm not sure that this is right for me. And was told, oh no, we'll work with you and we'll change this and we'll do that. And we really want you. And then I did feel like I barely got, you know, 5 or 6 months, um, during which time, you know, I was told my work was excellent. So I don't know what happened. Um, it will go down as one of those things. Was it just, you know, we want something else and we were confused, or I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it was definitely one of those things that made me wonder, like, what happened here?
I will share a little bit with you. That department has not changed much. The majority of the people who do that work are either white, female, or male. Um, the kind of administrative secretary slash word, I think there's one person of color in that department. So I don't think, in my opinion, it was anything that you did. I just don't think you met what was needed for them to gain what they were seeking to gain, which is, i.e., raising money. Um, so I will tell you my experience. I know a lot of smart people, really, really smart people, and you are one of those. And you adapt really, really well to whatever situation you are. So going from being a lawyer to helping nonprofits get off the ground to helping schools, establish themselves. So I think your ability to adapt and to bring forth good change speaks more to your character than it does to the experience that you had. So, and I apologize for that, although I had nothing to do with it. I apologize for that.
Well, I appreciate it. And at the same time, I know for a fact you didn't have anything to do with it. And I was so grateful for you. You were one of the few people there, and there were a handful of people there who really kind of reached out and were very supportive. It was clear to me once I got there that it was one of those kind of interesting places, which is totally fine. Um, if you are interesting, if you need to be interesting, if interesting is required for institutional and other reasons, whatever. I mean, as you said, I'm glad I have retained and project some of that adaptability. I've done it a lot. I've been happy to do it because, again, it's allowed me to have what is probably somewhat non-traditional career for a lawyer. And I've enjoyed being able to do a number of things. And in particular, enjoy my work around building up communities and working with nonprofits and people who are really trying to make a difference day to day in folks' lives in a very real, tangible way. So, I've seen that before. What I think is a disservice to the people whose lives are disrupted, as mine was in that situation, is the lack of honesty about what you're doing, the fact that it affects other people, that your needs are what they are, your belief system is what it is, and you kind of need to own that and act accordingly. Whether that means busting up the ideas that you hold on to that may or may not in actuality and reality have any bearing on the goals that you say you've set. Or if it means, you're somehow constrained and operating within the rules you've been given, fine, don't hire me though. You know what I mean?
Right.
Go find the person that fits your needs. So
I don't have to take another personal hit that makes me question my worthiness. It makes me question my ability, my skills, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah. And luckily for me, I was sort of past that point. I had been, when I think about some of the, like I said, those early on experiences, I was way beyond, I had to sort of get over very early and understand other people's issues are their issues. I try to be very honest about my own, like I got stuff to work on still. Yeah. And I try to be honest about that and to work on those issues. But what I will not do is take on anybody else's nonsense. Your nonsense is your nonsense, and you're going to keep it over there, and it's not going to affect my self-worth. It may make me angry. I may be, annoyed that I have to deal with it, and then try to, hustle and figure out, okay, where do I go now? What do I do? But I'm not going to internalize it. Right. It's not going to become my issue. Whatever it is you're dealing with, that's yours.
It's yours. Exactly. Okay, so let's get to the nitty gritty.
Okay.
8 minutes and 46 seconds. What went through your mind when you heard or saw that video?
Rage, 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 and more rage. Just like, how loud can I scream? Just fury. Did I want to do some sort of symbolic burn everything down? Absolutely. Just rage, 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 rage. Followed very, very closely by, I have a son.
Right. Did any of your non-Black and brown friends reach out to you to find out how you were? What were you thinking? How were you feeling? What was going on with you?
A few.
Yeah.
A few. And did
you find that helpful?
I found it encouraging that they were honest enough with themselves and I guess comfortable enough with our relationship to step up and say, I'm willing to talk about this.
Right.
You know, that they weren't running from it or hiding, that they were willing to say, one, how are you doing? To acknowledge and understand this was something that might affect me, my kids, my family, and also encourage that, you know, they were open and willing to talk about it, which, you know, not everybody is willing to do.
To have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, you know, and of course, you know, like I said earlier, I'm like, why does this make you uncomfortable?
Right.
You know, I mean, I would say to people, go sit in a corner somewhere real quiet with yourself and try to figure out what is this discomfort about?
Right.
If it is true that this was, you know, this is other people, you don't feel that way, the sort of systemic historic things, and we could run through the history of legislation that continually, you know, imposed all sorts of horrific requirements on us that denied us rights. If it's true that that was that, and you don't believe in it, you don't support it, it's horrible, what are you uncomfortable about then?
Right. Exactly.
Where's this discomfort coming from? And that's not a question to answer to me. Again, that's the work that you have to do with yourself over in the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. When I saw Mr. Floyd laying there and calling for his mother, I literally
I didn't get that far. I couldn't even take that far.
I had a mental break. And since that time, I have been depressed, sad, angry, and sitting on the verge of depression. I mean, because like you, I have a son. My son is 21 years old. My
Right.
son, although he has a health issue and he's not allowed to go out into the public domain very much other than go to doctor's appointments, my fear is, and my son is like your son. He's very, very smart. You know, he knows how to behave. He knows
Right.
he's very courteous. He says, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. He's always, always genuinely human. But one day somebody could wake up and decide that that person that is my son, that beautiful, smart young man, could be expendable. And so when I saw what happened to Mr. Floyd, and as I have learned since, he knew the person who had his knee under.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
that hurt my feelings, you know, and so I'm trying my best to survive. When I started these diversity chats, a lot of people warned me, you know, you could get fired, or, you know, your employer could have a problem with these. And I've said to myself, you know, I am finally at that place where, okay, if you need to fire me, because my feelings are so hurt, because for 61 years, in various different figuratively ways, people have had their knee on my neck all this time. So I'm trying to breathe. I'm fighting for my family and my friends so that they can stay alive. So these diversity chats are people's chance to tell their story and to let the anger and the rage and the feelings that you have be known, because what we're expected to do is what you said about the person going sitting in the corner and being quiet. You are expected to go sit in the corner, follow orders, and be quiet.
And just suck it up. Just
Right.
deal with it.
Right. Don't you dare raise your voice. Don't you dare raise an issue. Don't you dare ask for anything, because that's your place. And
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate. But going back to Mr. Floyd, so Mr. Floyd had been dead maybe 2.5 weeks, and here we are in Atlanta, and there's another Black man killed. And yet we're protesting and marching, and we have a very diverse group of people protesting and marching, and yet and still, for whatever justifiable reason someone feels, they're able to kill a Black man. And I believe that some people are not Black and brown are outraged by that, but I believe they think there's unique instances. This is just not a universal thing that happens. But since 1619, we have been dying at rates far greater than what I hear more often, Black on Black crime. You know, I think somewhere in California.
There is no such thing.
Right. Somewhere I heard in California there was a man found hung from a tree.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something. I have contemplated suicide many times in my life, but the thought of putting a noose around my neck never crossed my mind as a way to kill myself. So one man was found naked, hung in a tree, and another one was hung somewhere else. And you sit back and you think about these things, and they give you pause because it's kind of like, okay, something about this doesn't smell right, but okay, what power do I have to do anything about it? And that's the thing that I feel. Where you feel rage, I feel powerless, invisible, and voiceless. And so this is why I do my chats. This is why, and I want everybody who will to tell their story, so that it can be heard. Because I think that at the end of the day, powerful people in leadership roles, people with money, although their intent is good, you're not in the trenches. You're not down here in these weeds having microaggressions and name calling and pay inequities and all of these different things happen to you because you've made it to a certain level. And someone said this to me today, a part of that is luck to get to where you are. But for those of us that are down here where I am, it's a daily struggle just to get up and go to work and do my best work. And I must do my best work. I can't half-ass the job because I'm a Black woman. I can't be mediocre. I have to be great, so sorry for the soapbox, but
No, I mean it's real. I mean, what do you do when you're like us and our tax dollars keep these law keeping forces employed and pay their pensions, but you're afraid to call them if anything happens at your house because they might get there and start shooting you. I mean, it's just I think people don't understand. I actually don't think even people who don't love Black people or love, Hispanics or whatever the group is, and I know right now we're talking about Black people, even when they don't love Black people know right from wrong.
Right.
And would not agree in any sort of deliberate way that Black people should walk around legitimately afraid the way that we do, and not afraid from some guy down the street who might hit us on the head and take our purse,
right,
but afraid of the government and government forces, and afraid of, the kinds of things that happen regularly to Black people in this country without any sort of redress. To me, the example is there are times when, I'm out, after dark or early in the morning before the sun comes up, and I see people jogging. Mm-hmm. Just simple as that, and I always think, I'm not coming out here to jog in the dark, because if somebody, one, I could be a target for somebody who wants to make a point or is just having a bad day and feeling aggressive. Right. And two, if something happens to me, anybody gonna be looking for me? Right. There's not gonna be a community-wide effort to organize and come find me.
Right. Exactly. That's so true. And and I will say this, like words, I can sit here and tell you, Aubria, I am going to travel to Japan tomorrow. Is it true? Absolutely not. But those are the words I just said.
Right.
But where are the actions? Have I bought a plane ticket? Have I made hotel reservations? Right. So when these people, especially leaders in organizations speak, where's the action? Hire more Black people and brown people. Pay them equally. Give them an opportunity to succeed. Increase your diversity for your population so there is an organizational culture that is supportive. Don't hire a diversity officer who has no power. So if someone comes to them and says, right, hey, I feel like I've been discriminated against or I've had this happen to me, the person will sit there and listen, oh, I'm so sorry. But nothing is going to change.
They can't do anything. Right.
So my point is show me the actions. Let me see what you're going to do. Don't talk to me. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to read about it. I want you to show me what you're going to do. So if you're in a position of power, do something. Don't talk.
Right. I agree with that. And part of that starts calling it out when you do see it. When you hear, you know, that relative or that colleague or whatever, somebody in church say something that's hateful, that's mean, you know, you don't have to get up in their face and fight them, but just, you know, you could sort of say, well, I don't really believe that, or, you know, I don't know that that's really fair. You know, to me, that sounds a little biased. I don't want us to approach this that way. Start calling it out. Let people know that you don't agree with it. Start trying to start challenging these assumptions that people have. You know, the next time somebody says something about black on black crime, remind them that's not a thing, you know.
Yeah.
That's really not a thing. All crime is committed, you know, largely, I mean, vast majority of crime is committed by people of the same race, ethnicity, whatever.
Right.
That's not a thing, you know, that just, you know, call that out and just say, you know, that's not really a thing.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
just start addressing it. Don't let it go. Don't accept it. Don't assume, well, that's just the way it is. No, it doesn't have to be.
Absolutely. So, Audrey, we have run out of time. I have 2 minutes I am going to give to you to say whatever you need to say. And if you agree with this video that we have done, I will upload it. If you don't and you want to do over, we can do that as well. So 2 minutes belong to you.
My 2 minutes. Thank you for doing this. It is fantastic to have an opportunity to talk about these things. In particular, to talk to you about it because, you know, we have worked in a very similar workplace, not exactly in the same department, but same institution. And have also, you know, worked a number of different places and we've seen these things. Again, I certainly am past the point, and I imagine you are too, where I need validation. Like, you know, I've long since passed the point where I walk around thinking, well, am I crazy? Like, am I being too sensitive? I don't go through that anymore. And at the same time, it's nice to talk to other people about it.
Yeah.
Please keep doing this. I think it is helpful, and I hope other people will be empowered to speak out based on the work that you're doing here.
Oh,
So.
I think it is. I have gotten so many people requesting to do one. I told my husband after next week, I'm only doing 2 a day because sometimes I have 6 and 7 of these a day, and it is taxing. It is very taxing, and it further depresses me. Some of the stories I heard, you know, my husband told the story. He was my guinea pig, and he told the story of being a young man surrounded in a car surrounded by police officers with guns drawn on him. You know, and that was the first time he'd ever shared that with me. And we share everything, you know, so there are no secrets between us. And so when he told me that, you know, my fear heightened, my sense of depression heightened, you know, and, you know, I said when I first started these, I think I told you this, everybody said, you know, you're going to get fired, right? Once your administration hears about this, they're going to fire you. And I thought to myself, okay, if that's the price I have to pay, so be it. You know, we can go go in a homeless shelter, or we can go, you know, get a cardboard sign and walk around up the block. We'll work for food, you know, whatever we have to do. But, you know, I can't see how I can stop doing this because no one is really doing it at my level. You know, you see all the powerful people on television, on CNN and whatever else talking about this, you know, but when you saw the video, how they see us, you know, here was 5 young men, teenagers, early teenagers, who were incarcerated for raping a woman that did not help. And with the prosecution that was so intent on convicting these young men that, you know, what can you say? You know, when James Byrd Jr. had a rope tied around his neck and attached to the back of a pickup truck and drug for 3 miles, literally decapitating him, what can you say? You know, because obviously the thing that comes to mind is we're not human, or we are either invisible. There's got to be something about being black and brown that is offensive to people who are not. And that's all I can say because nothing else makes sense.
Nothing else does make sense. But I also think, you know, this woman asked me recently, I really want to help Black people. I want to help with these issues. What can I do to help Black people? And I said, what you can do is start talking to white people.
Right.
Like, we don't hate ourselves in that way. We fully understand our humanity. I don't know what it is, like you said, with some parts of that community that sees us as, I'm not trying to figure that out. But the problem starts and ends with you. not with me. I know for a fact I'm a human being. I
Yeah.
know you are. I know that Black and brown around the world are human beings
Yeah.
with human dignity.
Right.
I don't have the problem. I'm
Right.
trying to protect myself against that aggression.
Right. Absolutely.
So I don't know what that is. I really takes somebody a lot smarter than me to figure out what's wrong with it. And there isn't a pill to cure it. So
Amen. 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 My darling, thank you so much for doing this with me.
thank you for asking me. I
Oh, I-
appreciate the opportunity.
absolutely. I couldn't do it without you. You had to be one of my voices.
Oh, thank you.
But maybe either this weekend or next weekend, we'll have a chance to chat. I have something I want to share with you. So maybe
That would be fabulous. I'm around, we're still in quasi quarantine, so I'm around. So whenever you're free, just let me know.
Yep, I'll send you a text message asking you could
Okay.
talk. Probably Sunday would probably be the best day for me this week. Next week, I have no idea. But right now, I've got so many of these scheduled, trying to get, I like tomorrow, I think I have 10 of them,
That is a lot. The emotional, that's
Right,
a lot.
right.
Yeah.
And you can't tell someone, well, you only got 30 minutes. And when you don't usually get to the good part of the conversation till you're 30, 40 minutes into
Right.
the discussion.
Right.
So,
Right.
you can't tell people to stop talking. So, I am a bit exhausted and sad and depressed and hurt, but at the same time, I'm happy to do this work because I think somebody should do this work, and they should have uncomfortable conversations with people. They should talk about what we're seeing, about what we think about our lives, because as you said, we know who we are, we know our value, we know what we contribute,
Absolutely.
and we know where we came from.
Exactly. I mean, it's one of the most difficult things too. You know, um, I am telling about the family lore. Most of us who are still here have some stories of overcoming.
Right.
People who had to overcome, who had to persevere. Because there millions of us didn't make it, died. Weren't able to continue the bloodline. So those of us who are here, we've got stories to tell.
Right.
And we know about grandma, grandpa, great grandparent, whatever, who overcame, who achieved, who had to face down something and keep going.
Right.
So we know that history. We know where we came from. We know what we came out of.
Right.
And that was one of the things that was so horrible. It's like after, hundreds of years of slavery, and then the failure, well, not the failure, Reconstruction was actually tremendously successful. It was gutted and undercut. Yeah, until it was sabotaged. I was going to say, it wasn't that it was failing. The problem was that it was succeeding too well.
Right.
And then, decades of Jim Crow and lynching. My uncle, I asked him about lynching because I know we had some relatives who were. And, my uncle's 85.
Mm-hmm.
He remembers it. He remembers when they showed up. He remembers what happened afterwards, how nobody was punished. He saw the bodies that had been dismembered, and had to work with the other, young men in the family. He was a teenager at the time to prepare for a funeral with these pieces, and told me when I asked him about it, because I wanted to submit the names to the project in Alabama, Brian Stevens's project. He said, yeah, the next time you come to the house, he was like, the stump and the area where we found all the axe and all the bloody cloths and blood everywhere. He was like, it's right behind the house. I'll show it to you. I mean, this was not hundreds of years ago. Right. This is my uncle's lifetime. Right. After going through Jim Crow and lynchings and the civil rights movement and all that, I'm like, okay, and here we are with poor Mr. Floyd calling out for his mama being killed while people just stood around like it was no big deal. Right. And he's, he's the one that we're lucky enough to have footage for, so we can try to seek some justice to the extent there is such a thing for such a barbarous act. What about all the thousands that, we never hear about and there's no footage?
Right. Absolutely. Aubria, I have to go, but I want to tell
All
you
right,
thank you so
darling.
much for this. So I'm gonna send you a text hopefully Sunday morning. If I get out of the bed, I may not get out of bed Sunday altogether, so you have to talk to me in my pajamas.
Well,
But
I was going to say, I'm happy to talk to you while you're sitting in the bed. That's fine. I may be doing the same thing.
absolutely. So I'll see what time Sunday.
Okay.
After we manage to figure out what we're gonna eat, we've gotten to the point where we are very good at eating cereal.
I think that's a completely legitimate choice. We're
Yes,
eating frozen food, which I wouldn't let them do. But now it is what it is. So
absolutely.
I'll talk to you on Sunday, darling.
All right, thank you. I love you, Audria,
I love you too. I miss you.
and I miss you too so much, my darling. You are always so beautiful and so wise and
You are so
so
sweet.
generous, and I'm so glad that we are sisters from other mothers.
Absolutely. And we're going to stay that way too. So I'll talk to
Absolutely.
you Sunday.
Thank you, darling.
You too.
Tell the kids I said
Bye.
hello.
I'll
Bye.
do it. Bye.
Bye.